Good afternoon. My name is John Childress, and I have the privilege of serving as the First Assistant United States Attorney for the Southern District of Indiana. With me to my right is AUSA Tiffany Preston, and to her right is AUSA Carolyn Haney. To my left is FBI Special Agent in Charge Timothy O'Malley, and to his left is ICAC Commander Chris Cecil. I want to extend my deep appreciation and gratitude to those standing with me today and to others who made invaluable contributions to this prosecution, including AUSA Kyle Sala, Victim Witness Coordinator Stephanie Lloyd, Victim Witness Specialist John Preet, and the men and women of state and local law enforcement and of the Department of Justice who assisted with this prosecution. Today, we will describe for you the investigation, prosecution, and recent sentencing of Austin Lauless. Because the offenses committed by Lauless are so deeply depraved, it is understandably tempting to look away. Few want to look squarely in the face of a monster. Of all of the significant things we will share with you today, I think the following is the most important, and I want to say it simply and plainly. If you are entrusted with the care of a young person wholly or partially, know with great certainty that there are evil people who will seek them out with the sole purposes of harming them physically and emotionally. The type of harm they seek to cause will last for years, if not forever. Know also that these people will never need to meet your children, but instead will obtain access to them through an item we commonly use hundreds of times a week, the phone. Finally, know that despite all the resources and powers of law enforcement, you, the caregivers, are the first and best line of defense between those who would harm your children and the children you rightfully cherish. Constant vigilance, presence, and persistence in the lives of your children helps to keep them safe. Let us remember that awesome responsibility and strive to fulfill it. Today, this defendant was sentenced to 84 years in the Bureau of Prisons, to be followed by a lifetime of supervised release. As significant and well-deserved as that sentence is, by itself, it cannot repair the damage that has been done. Over the course of his conduct, this defendant wreaked havoc in the lives of 84 children. He did this through a practice known as sextortion. First gaining the trust of his victims, often posing as a young, successful teen named Cason Fredrickson, Lauless became a familiar voice through repeated contact via popular mobile phone applications, such as Instagram, Snapchat, and Discord. Once a level of trust had been obtained, the defendant's demands began. Motivated by his personal, sexual, financial, and sadistic desires, Lauless enticed and compelled his victims to produce sexually explicit materials for him, materials he later commercially sold to others. Any signs of resistance by his victims were met with threats by Lauless to expose the sensitive materials to victims' families and friends. In short, they were extorted. Not satisfied with selling these sexually explicit materials, Lauless next coerced some of his victims into participating in commercial acts of sex, which were in turn recorded and distributed, initiating a new cycle of violence and abuse. While it is important to describe this awful conduct, especially for purposes of enacting a just punishment, in my opinion, it is not where our primary focus should be. Our focus should and must be on the victims of these crimes and their families. The term tragedy hardly captures what these families have endured, all through no fault of their own. They are, in the truest sense of the word, victims. Notwithstanding being victimized, it is essential that we remember their extreme bravery in coming forward and cooperating with law enforcement and our office in this successful prosecution. This type of bravery is rare, and I am deeply grateful for it. I also want to promise the victims in this case that they are not alone. This case will eventually end, but our commitment to them and our willingness to help will not. Together with others, we will support their efforts in furtherance of the important work of healing. At this time, I'd like to invite SAC Timothy O'Malley to the podium for his remarks.
Thank you, John. Once again, my name is Special Agent in Charge Timothy O'Malley of the FBI's Indianapolis Division. This case is truly a heinous case. I've been an agent for 25 years, and I cannot think of a case quite like this in my entire career. It is horrific. What the defendant or the convicted felon did was truly depraved, to prey on more than 84 kids, and the actions that he took to coerce them, to manipulate them, to bend them into committing acts that I don't even want to describe. It is truly disgusting. Hard to believe that someone could do this to children. I think, though, that this case does serve as a reminder to the entire state of Indiana and to the country that this occurs on the internet every day. There are predators out there who are targeting our children using common applications online like Snapchat and Instagram. It happens. It's going on every day, and I think parents need to remember it's your responsibility to have open conversations with your children, understand what they're doing online, talk to them about who they're dealing with online. This case is a great example of how we actually identified the subject. It was through parents who identified unusual activity because they had an interest. So it's your responsibility to understand what your kids are doing, and more so, I would say, as a parent, please provide your children off-roads, opportunities to talk, people in their lives who they can share with if they're going through something, if they need to discuss problems. Being able to talk about what they're experiencing is critically important to law enforcement in identifying who these subjects are. I just want to say that this, I believe this is a growing trend. I don't see it going away, but I want people to understand, I want you to understand that the FBI is working every day. Our resources are being leveraged every day to identify offenders and to protect children. I want to thank the FBI team, which consisted of numerous individuals, our task force officers who work these violations every day, the FBI personnel that include agents and analysts and our professional staff. And I also want to thank the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, commonly referred to as NCMEC, for the assistance they provided in this investigation. I want to send a warning, too, to anyone who may be exploiting children. I just want you to know, whether it's in person or online, the FBI takes this seriously. And we will bring the full weight of federal resources down upon you if you're involved in this activity. Finally, I ask anyone who may have been a victim to Mr. Lauless, posing as Cason Fredrickson, to please come forward. Our telephone number is 800-CALL-FBI. We also operate a tip line, tips.fbi.gov or tips.fbi.gov. And finally, to those victims who came forward, to the children, thank you. Your courage, what you did by coming forward and reporting what happened, allowed us to identify Lauless and to put him behind bars. Thank you for what you did. You made a difference. You prevented other people from being harmed. So thank you.
Thank you, USAC O'Malley, and at this time, we're happy to take any questions.
I know from the release that was sent out when he pled guilty back in September, the number of victims was listed at 68. It's jumped to 84. Is there any help the general public understand? Is there any chance that he might face new criminal charges in a new case, or is this solely this case is opened and now closed because of his sentencing today?
This case is open and closed. We are, of course, those victims are part and parcel of the entirety of our investigation and his course of conduct. And law enforcement is always looking to help find those victims and provide them the support that they need and report the sentence to them so that they feel a measure of justice. In terms of whether he faces charges anywhere else for this course of conduct, I would say that's unlikely, especially given the significant sentence he received today and the fact that we made sure and certain in his sentencing that the judge was well aware that the victim count was at least 84 victims and that more victims might be identified later and could come forward. And we sought in this case and in this sentencing to make sure that he was held accountable for the full scope and scale of his conduct, which was immense.
Do you think 84 years is a good enough sentence in that case when he victimized kids in nearly every single state in 5 countries, that 84 years is what he was given?
So I'm a mother and I understand how any parent would feel. No sentence is ever great enough when someone hurts your kid like this. What I would say is that the victims we have worked with were very happy and felt that it was a just sentence, because what they wanted to see is that they feel, and it's true, the devastating impact of this crime is life lasting. And they wanted to make sure that his sentence was commensurate with that it reflected that, and it did. Because this is an equivalent life sentence. It was so important to the victims with whom we worked to know that he's never going to get out, that he will never be able to hurt another kid again. And that's what this sentence accomplished. So yes. But I get how every parent would feel, and nothing other than the word life might not be enough for them. But certainly the victims we work with felt that justice was served today. And that's good.
Would you compare this case, is this case comparable in magnitude to any other cases?
So the closest case that we could think of, and it was actually something that we referenced in our 43-page sentencing memorandum, is another case I prosecuted with the FBI, with the special agents that's sitting here today, Special Agent Andrew Woolman, United States versus Buster Hernandez. In that case, he was also a mass sextortionist. He had it almost, or at least, I think, 375 victims, and achieved his criminal tradecraft was very similar in the way that he would get victims to produce and then, of course, threaten and coerce and extort them to produce more for a long period of time. The key difference in that case, he, of course, also engaged in a number of other offenses. If you look it up, he threatened to blow up buildings in Plainfield, for example. He brought a community to its knees. The key difference between that case and this case in terms of magnitude is that Buster Hernandez coveted his material. He didn't disseminate it. And if you listen to the victims of these cases, it's not just the impact of the abuse as it's happening, it's the magnitude and the devastation and the impact it has for the rest of their lives, because this offender, Mr. Lauless, disseminated everything, everywhere. And now these poor victims live every single day with the knowledge that their material has been traded and will be traded in perpetuity. And that is a terrible burden that they carry. And so, no, for me, there's no comparison. There are other mass extortion cases that the Department of Justice is prosecuting and currently investigating. Many of those, and there's some great statistics on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's website, is there's a huge uptick in these cases, are financially based, financially motivated sextortion. And those operators are targeting athletes. They're targeting kids who have a lot of extracurricular activities. And that is because they know that those children care very much about how the community sees them. And so they are easy prey. And so we are trying to get the word out. The other thing that I just wanted to add very quickly is so much what we heard today and so much what we have heard in the years dealing with these parents and their children. There's a lot of self-blame that ends up happening in these cases, and I want to make very clear, there's only one person to blame for these offenses, and that is Mr. Lauless. He is 100% to blame. And everybody who bought this material from him, his online customers, are to blame. The people who continue to disseminate it are to blame. And I want that to be clear because so many of these parents, we heard the anguish in their voices today talking about how they felt like this was their fault, that they could have done more to protect their child. Children here are really our first line of defense because they're the ones who receive the messages. So of course we want to get the word out to teach them how to have open communication, how to be able to talk about these things but protect themselves, to only communicate with people they've met face to face. And then of course, as you heard referenced here today, to feel safe to talk about things with their parents when things go wrong. What was so insidious about this case is he weaponized these children's love for their parents. He turned it on them and said that if you don't send 30 more videos right now, I'm going to tell your friends and I'm going to send everything to them. And they loved their parents so much, these kids, that they would have rather hurt themselves and engage in terrible, violent behavior against their own bodies. They would rather suffer than to disappoint their parents. And so what I wanted to focus on is the fault in that lies 100% with him. So many of these parents were just devoted, caring, involved, loving parents. We've been in their homes. They have every trophy this kid has ever had. They have beautiful bedrooms. They care so much for these children. It is not their fault. It is not their fault. And for many of them, they had safeguards on their phone. They would ask their kids, what's happening on your phone? What's happening to you? And it still happened. And so I just want to make that clear that there is one person to blame here. But that, of course, the messaging is clear, and it's something that I know that my boss knows I feel very passionate about, which is getting the message out on how can we teach kids to protect themselves and how can we teach them to get help from their parents or law enforcement if things go wrong. So I appreciate the opportunity for you guys being here today so we can help spread that message.
I take it then the victims and family were there at the hearing today to make it clear to the judge?
Yes. So not all of them. Obviously all 84 were able to be here. And certainly ones we haven't identified yet were able to be here today, but many of them were. So many of them also submitted victim impact statements that are under seal in writing. But the victim presentations today, their impact statements, were I think the most powerful part of the sentencing hearing today, because nobody can adequately capture how this feels better than they can. And I thought they were brave, courageous. They did just an incredible job of explaining to Judge Barker how this feels when it happened, now and moving forward for the rest of their lives. It was incredibly moving for all of us. Any questions?
Okay.
So again, I want to thank you for the time to discuss this important case, and as noted, the importance